Welcome back. I am so excited that you have joined me again in the Aligned Womb, Aligned You podcast. I'm Kate Nagai, and I am your host and womb guide on this journey. I'm here to help you to lean into the language of your menstrual cycle so that you can align yourself and awaken and activate to your womb wisdom to live the most inspired life. I am so excited to jump into this episode and to dive into today's topic. So let's get started. I am so excited to have a guest speaker on this podcast today. We are going to be talking with Jamie Kay, who is a menstrual empowerment educator, a hormone health coach, a filmmaker. I have some questions around that, a wife, and a mother of two. And today's discussion, we're going to go into endometriosis, one of these menstrual conditions that so many women are plagued with. And I think sometimes feel very hopeless on this journey of how to heal or how to come into relationship with their body when they're under this chronic pain every month. So, Jamie, I am so excited to hear your journey through endometriosis, hear how you've come into relationship here with your body and how this has led to your career path of being a menstrual empowerment coach, which I just love talking to other coaches around the cycle because more of us need to be having these conversations. Totally. So welcome, Jamie.
I'm so glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
Oh, I really am looking forward to this because I think for me, at least this is how I relate. And I have to be honest, I've only had ectopic pregnancies. That was like my kick in the butt to start to explore what is my cycle? Like, do I do anything other than ovulate and bleed? Because at that point I had no idea what was happening in my body. Mm-hmm. And it was through having this condition of, blocked tubes that I learned so much about my body. And once I got to start exploring and understanding my body, there was a part of me that really started to feel like if more of us women started to live in alignment with our hormones, started to live in alignment with this language of our womb and, adjusted so that we were more cyclical, would we have things like endometriosis, fibroids, PCOS? Is this all coming down to the fact that we're all pushing ourselves in different ways, which is creating more disconnection than connection? Mm-hmm. So I'm interested. Endometriosis, because I've never had it. I've had lots of clients and lots of friends that have had it, ironically enough. Mm-hmm. And I would love to hear your firsthand account of endometriosis. What was it like, getting this diagnosis or your path into even getting the diagnosis? Because mm-hmm. I've read or researched that it takes 8 to 11 years from the first symptoms to really get diagnosed with it. A lot of us have this for a while without even knowing it.
20 years for me.
Oh, 20 years.
By the time I got diagnosed, it was stage 4. But I want to go back really quick, if I can, mm-hmm. before I tell you my story and just say something that you just said, because it was so profound, which is, if we learned about our bodies and these rhythms, would things be different? And I think the question is, imagine no one had ever told us about the circadian rhythms. Imagine no one ever told us, hey, you know what? You're supposed to sleep. It's actually better for your body if you sleep at night. And then there's certain times of the day where it's a lot easier for you to be really productive. And other times of the day, it's a lot easier for you to be social. We all know these things. We all do coffee hours. We all do coffee stops at 3 p.m. We all get most of our work done early in the morning. We all rest at night, unless you have a job that says otherwise. But we all understand circadian rhythms. And if we go against them, what happens? We get very sick. We get very misaligned. We get depressed. We have a second rhythm called the infradian rhythm, which is more of a 28-day rhythm that no one's ever taught us. And it's definitely leading to all sorts of things. Mm-hmm. So anyway.
No, and I think that's beautiful because we do know this 24-hour clock and we live in alignment with it and we're taught it right from birth. And not to go down this whole rabbit hole, but the men's hormonal system, testosterone, it resets on that circadian rhythm of that 24-hour clock. Like they need 24 hours for them to go through their cycle. And that doesn't work for us. And so how can we start to tap into that differently and not even feel okay, but, to really feel the power of it
and to thrive.
Yeah.
Thrive in the way we were intended.
Yeah.
So
more than one way to live, more than one way to live.
yeah, exactly. Especially when our biology wires us differently.
Mm-hmm.
So back to your question, I mean, much like you, I was awoken to cycle work and the power of living with my natural rhythms, with, something that was going wrong. And for me, that was endometriosis. And very similar to you, the doctors were like, oh, there's nothing to do except remove everything, whether it be physically remove it or give you medication to put you into medical menopause at 35 and single, And I was 15 when I had massive pain that the doctors told my mother after lots of testing was all in my head. And so I just thought it was normal to be in this kind of pain. I have a story like a lot of other people's where for like 10 years in there, I was on birth control. And so I wasn't really noticing too much. But when I went off of birth control in my early 30s, it was like, all hell broke loose, really. And things got worse and worse and worse. And I went to see a doctor and he said, well, your body is mad at you and it's punishing you that you haven't had kids yet. And I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. That's how deeply ingrained it was in my own psyche and my own body that yeah, of course, my body was built to punish me. And it wasn't until I finally got a diagnosis of stage 4 endometriosis, when it had literally taken over, was on 12 of my organs and huge blood cysts on my ovaries. And I was in excruciating pain, like awful, awful pain. I would not wish endometriosis on anyone. And the doctor was like, okay, well, we're going to put you on this medication. We're going to take your uterus out. I was like, just hold up. Let me do a little research. And I would come back and I would say, actually, women say this medication is awful. They say it's sometimes worse than the diagnosis itself. I don't want to do that. I want to do something else. And there was so much pressure. So much pressure. Even he name called me sometimes. And yet I persisted and followed the thread of one woman speaking her truth and would dive into some sort of course or some sort of book that she had written. And that would lead me to another woman, another course, and another until I was studying womb shamanism, cycles and spirituality. I was studying nutrition for hormones. I'd arranged my entire cycle to my entire life around my cycle. And the changes were so profound that I thought, much like you, how have I never heard of this before? How am I having to do this huge deep dive solo when all of my friends would benefit from knowing this? And so it just became my passion project to kind of experiment on myself with what I was learning. I just wanted to learn more and more and more and more. It's fascinating work. It's deep, deep truth. It resonates with me in my body. And now I just want to share it with as many people as I can.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's so true with what you're saying. I remember, and this is when I first started going into my yoga therapy training, a big part of it was to work with fertility, because that's where my initial hiccup was with trying to conceive and constantly getting these ectopic pregnancies, and physicians constantly saying, there's nothing we can do. Let's just remove the last tube that I had remaining, and IVF, because we have no idea and we're not wasting time to research it. And I think that's what really got under my skin, was that there was no let me look into it. It was always just a cold cut. This is the only option. We've told you, this is it. You got no other option. And I hear that so often with the clients I work with endometriosis, is that it's just a hysterectomy. Let's just remove it. And I think that as women, especially for me, fertility was it felt like death. It felt like, if I can't have kids, you're taking away a huge part of who I want to be. And much like a woman going through endometriosis that's told, just remove your uterus. It's no big deal. You don't need it to survive. It's not your heart. It's not your lungs. Let's just remove it. It's no big deal. That's a part of our identity. Mm-hmm. And I can't imagine how that's supposed to make us feel empowered. Mm-hmm. Where is, on this journey of exploring our body and learning about it, where are our teachers early in life to help us feel empowered by our cycle? So that way, like you and I, we didn't have to go in this deep dive of like, okay, I'm going to read this book and, ooh, it told me this little tidbit. So I'm going to seek out that teacher. And then I'm going to do this. Like, as much as I've loved it, don't get me wrong, my journey has been one that has lifted me up out of despair to a place where I really do feel so empowered in my body and so empowered by my cycle.
Exactly. Me too.
That I crave doing the trainings. I'm like, okay, which one can I take next? Which one can I do next? Yeah. And it's not because I have to heal something. It's because it's lit something up in me that has been like, let's transform this world and let's transform how women feel in their bodies.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I totally agree. I can really relate to that. Feel the same way.
And can I just like, one of the first things you said, like when you were a teen and the doctor just said, it's all in your head. Like how many of us, and I think, not that I want the conversation to go around birth control today, but like this seems to be like, we don't know how to solve it. So it's in your head and we'll just put you on birth control so you don't have to feel and we don't have to create a solution. And I really love that you shared that because I think it's going to resonate with so many people out that are told like, it really isn't anything. Like, even if we go outside of like the extreme measures that women feel with endometriosis, but menstruating women in workplaces or in their intimate relationships. You know, I was just reading on your Instagram account a post that you did just a few weeks ago around how your husband's learned your cycle as well. How much of this are women afraid sometimes? And I think a lot of us are until we go down this journey of like, we're changing, we're altering the way we exist, go down this journey of feeling like we can't be our full self, that we have to hide. Like we just have to show up at work, even though we're in extreme pain, because no one's going to believe us. Like they're going to say that we're overreacting, or our first day of bleed and we feel like we really can't even crawl out of bed. And it's like, no, I still got to get up and make the kids lunches, and I still got to make suppers, and I got to do this and I got to do this, rather than just saying like, I need help, or this is the way it is. Sorry, coworkers, I got to take a day off work. Yeah. I have a client that I worked with who had endometriosis, and I worked with her during COVID, and it was so profound when she had the ability to say, I need a substitute. Like it just was at that point in COVID, everyone, like you just never knew with the predictability of when people could come into work. So it was almost like this easy for her to say, I'm sick today. And her endometriosis got so much better. Within like 3 months, she had a pain-free period finally. It's because she felt guilt-free of calling in sick on her period.
And yes, that's such a good point. And the other thing I think too that brings up for me is also we haven't learned that kind of pain is not normal. That signals that something is wrong. There's some imbalance. Your body is screaming at you at that point that you need to stop. You need to take a break. You need to get in balance, or whatever it is. I mean, it's not. Basically, my feeling of it is like our bodies are our allies. We've just never learned how to listen. And so if someone were to say, okay, you really need a day or two off, and also this is a sign that something's really off and we have to figure out what. We have to listen. We have to fine tune our thinking and our feeling body, and like get to the root of what your body's trying to tell you. Because just like me hearing from the doctor, like, oh, your body's punishing you, and me going, oh yeah, that tracks. Like, no one's ever told me, actually, your body is your greatest ally. It's your greatest ally. And it's communicating to you so profoundly, but it's just a language we've never learned.
And what a difference it can be when we get into a relationship with that ally.
Absolutely.
Like, I think so much of us, at least I did, until I had that transformational moment where I felt differently. I felt into my body. I could feel my womb space. I could feel her talking to me, and I could feel my need to want to shift. Is that I hated my period. I was like, oh my gosh, can I just wait until menopause and I never have to bleed again? Where now, every month, I'm so excited about seeing my blood. I'm so excited about seeing how many days is it? Was it a full cycle? What did it feel like? What's the color? Like now it's like, for me, it is that fifth vital sign. It brings me back into like, how is my health right now?
Absolutely. Me too. I never thought I would be so excited about seeing my blood. And then after pregnancy, seeing it come back was also really profound for me, because I've been saying for many years, I mean, my endo journey has been now almost 10 years since my diagnosis, and I went on this deep dive. And I've always been saying, like, blood is sacred, blood is sacred. But after I had my second child, so my son is now 1 year old, my cycle just came back 3 months ago, I saw that blood return, and I felt the sacredness of it like I've never felt before. Like everything, cycles are so exciting because they take you on deeper and deeper and deeper spirals of all sorts of things, awakening to different levels and awakening to yourself and your own truth. And it's like this most recent spiral that I've been on, and having my cycle come back, I'm like, I really like understand in my cells how sacred it is. Like, it has the potential for so much creative life force, creativity in general, whether it is to produce life or not. Like, it's just really exciting. And what I think is exciting about this work is that it deepens every cycle.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And I love that you said, like, awakening to this, like the excitement that you could feel with that. Cause that's one thing that I do get for feedback from a lot of clients that I work with, is that as soon as they learn about the cycle, as soon as they learn the different, I call them seasons, but phases of your cycle, they're like, how did I not know this? And now I feel so awake. Like, I feel so awake to my body. I feel like I've been just given information that completely makes sense.
Yeah.
And I always say that is like the first key to more self-compassion, right? Like, I was that person that always beat myself up about being grouchy during my luteal phase. I'm like, PMS is the worst, and I just can't handle people. But now I'm just like, whoa, I'm getting grouchy. It means I haven't taken enough time for myself today. So, family, I'm checking out. Yeah. I got to go take a break, and I got to go take care of myself because I'm out of balance.
Absolutely.
And that is the act of self-love for me, is like me knowing my rhythm and knowing how I interact with myself and my outside environment. And when that's off kilter, I always go back to, where am I at in my cycle? Mm-hmm. How is that not aligning to how I'm feeling? And now, can I bring it back into balance? What do I need? What's my medicine today to bring me back into my balance?
I love that. I just had a similar experience where I'm in my luteal phase now. And a month ago, again, having 3 cycles back, I was having, for the first time ever in my life, like symptoms of what I would say are similar to what I've heard of postpartum depression, where I was having really scary thoughts. I was not sleeping. I was really grumpy. And I think what's so empowering about understanding cycles is that just because you know how to get in balance doesn't mean it's always easy to stay there. But I can quickly recognize, oh, wow, just like you said, how have I been showing up for myself? Not at all. Not at all. And so it's time to just take as many things off my plate as possible, even if that means half an hour to bed early and into the bath or something, and like up the self-care, take a few things off my plate, rest when my bleed comes, start incorporating the foods that I know nourish me at different parts of my cycle. And it's like, here I am 1 month later, exactly 1 month later. And it's like, I'm having a completely different experience in this luteal phase. It's also so empowering to know exactly what's going on, that your normal states are not to suffer. But that means that something needs to shift, to be able to recognize what that is and do it, and then notice how your body responds.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. How would you say that coming into relationship with your rhythm and your cycle has changed your experience with endometriosis? Because I'm guessing your endometriosis is still there, most likely.
Yeah, I don't know. I have pain-free cycles. I have pain-free life. I had my 2 children. I'm just so blessed to say this, but both of them unassisted. I was 39 when I had my daughter. I was 42 when I had my son. Both of them I conceived on, my son on the first try at 42. That's just unheard of. If you would have told me that would be my experience when I was diagnosed. So I can definitely tell very quickly when I'm out of balance, but luckily I don't live in that kind of excruciating pain anymore. And I would also say, like, what I really believe to be true is that for me, when I established a relationship with my cycle, when I started to listen to what my womb, what my body was actually requesting of me, one step in my healing journey was eating different foods at different cycles, taking more time to rest for myself when I can in my luteal phase and especially my menstrual phase, adjusting my workouts to my cycle, adjusting my social calendar to my cycle. But also, one thing that I felt very clearly for my own healing was to have a surgery with a surgeon. And so that is part of my journey as well. And I do think that, there is sometimes, I went to womb shaman school. There's a lot of people who really believe in the power of the body, and I do too. But I felt a lot of judgment and had some conversations with even some of my mentors where they're like, womb wisdom means you heal yourself naturally. I'm a really big advocate of no, actually, womb wisdom means I listen to the next right thing for me. For me, you saying that I have to heal myself only this way is just the flip side of the same coin. So I want to also be really transparent that for me, like, surgery was also something that was part of my healing journey. However, I found a surgeon I really loved who knew all about cycle syncing, nutrition, all about supplements, and said that he wouldn't do surgery unless I was doing these things. And I had been doing them for years prior. So, I that's my story.
Yeah. And, I think that's beautiful that you mentioned that, because I come from the same lens, is that, yes, there is so much that we can do naturally to heal our body by coming into relationship, by slowing down and finding those pauses in the day to listen and check in. But what I want women to walk away with more than anything is that regardless of whatever decision is on the table, that they feel empowered in making that decision.
Absolutely.
And I feel like connecting to my womb has been that supercharger for me to feel empowerment, to make decisions, right? It's what makes me set boundaries in my life. I set boundaries with my partner. I set boundaries with my children. I set boundaries with my work life around where I'm at in my cycle. And any health concerns also come back to that same feeling of empowerment of that, if I have to go for surgery, or if I'm going to do IVF, or if I'm going to do IUI, I personally would never put myself in a position where I'm doing it because I am in a moment of despair where there is I feel like there's no other option. This is the only thing that may possibly help me. And I hope to God it works, because otherwise I have nothing. This is it. And I would rather women go into any procedure or any healing journey of going, okay, I know these are all my options. Now that I know all my options, what can I do so that I feel like I'm in the driver's seat when I make these decisions, versus being the passenger in the back seat going, I'm holding on to dear life and I'm hoping somebody knows what they're doing.
Hallelujah.
Right?
I totally agree with you. And that loops us back around to what we were talking about before, like birth control or hysterectomy. Make that decision if you want, and if you know the whole story, and if you feel in your gut, in your womb, in your bones that that's the right thing for you. I have no judgment.
Yeah.
No judgment, because you know what's best for you. I just feel like women need to know the whole story before they make those decisions.
Yeah. That's awesome. And I totally agree. I think so often these things are thrown at us, and they're thrown at us with language or with tone that makes it feel like if we don't act now, that somehow we're going to be in worse state. Mm-hmm. And, it's interesting because my middle child, I have 3 children. My middle child was born at 31 weeks and we were in the NICU. And I've never felt more pressure than I did at that moment of if you don't make this decision right now, everything for your child's viability is going to shift. When the reality was that none of it was life-threatening. If it was life-threatening, totally say this has to happen now, or else this could be worst case scenario. But things around gaining weight or, car seat tests, all these things that were thrown at you when your system is already your nervous system's overwhelmed and you're already feeling like I've got so much to decide really quickly. Mm-hmm. I just wish that when we had these conversations that we could really create the dialogue of these are options. And
Mm-hmm.
here is what each option provides. And now with that information, what can I do to help you so that you feel that you can tune into your intuition, you can turn it into your womb space, listen to what feels good, and then let me support you on that path that you choose. Because there is no wrong answer. There's never no wrong answer.
Mm-hmm.
There's just ways of us trying to heal our body.
Are you wanting to understand your cycle better, to understand your rhythm, the language of your womb, and to really begin to connect deeper with your body? Then I invite you to go and grab my free charting journal. This is a charting journal to chart for both your physical, your emotional, and your spiritual self, to deeply connect to your womb wisdom and to understand how to live more in alignment with your energy, so that you can have more self-love, more compassion, and you can live your life to the fullest with so much pleasure, with so much fun, and with excitement. It is time for us to be empowered by our womb wisdom and by the language of our cycle. So hop on over to the link below in the show notes and grab your free copy of the charting journal today.
So with your endometriosis, I know that you and I had talked a little bit about this before. It's just that, you obviously got to a place where you're able to have children, that you're able to have pain-free periods. This is a big thing. And I know even for myself with my ectopic pregnancies, there was this empowerment that came through when I was able to achieve what my goals were, when I was able to use my wisdom and use conventional and alternative medicine to get to where I needed to be. But I felt like in that moment, that was the catalyst that changed my life. It changed my life in so many ways because I quit my job. Mm-hmm. I got a whole new career. I went back to school. Like everything in my life did a 360. And I always say that my experience of ectopic pregnancies is really what helped me to be the parent I am today, and to be the partner that I am today, and to be the person I want to show up for myself as. So I'm curious, with your endometriosis and your healing journey, what opportunities do you feel have come your way because of your illness? Like what has shifted in your life for you to become Jamie Kay?
I love hearing that because I feel like my story is so similar to yours, even though different things woke us up to ourselves. Endometriosis was a huge gift for me. It was one of the most challenging things I've ever lived through, especially leading up to 20 years of pain. And also it was like such a big wake-up call. There's such opportunity for me in that illness. And I feel really proud of myself that I've been able to wholeheartedly embrace that opportunity. So I also really realized, like, if I don't want my body to scream at me, I have to listen when it whispers. I had that conversation with my womb. Like I actually heard her say that to me. I walked into the freelance production job that I had that next day and felt my whole body shrivel. And I was like, this is it. I can't do this anymore. That is a whisper. That is a whisper. Does this place light me up or does it not? Like, I couldn't just quit that day, but I made a plan to, and also noticed that there was a lot of times I was having really severe pain and inflammation in that very, very stressful job. And so made a plan to quit my job. I decided to have surgery. This was several years into it, but my now husband is my friend who took me to the surgery. And on the way, he helped me go to surgery. He helped me come home from surgery. And as I was recovering, I was like, what? Well, I never realized like I'm supposed to be with him. Like he's supposed to be my partner, so it woke me up to my partner and this amazing love and relationship we have. It woke me up to this whole world of interesting things and spirituality and nutrition and people and just opportunities and information that lights me up in a way that I was not living lit up before. And so it put me just like you on a complete 360 different trajectory of my life. I never thought that I would then go study hormones and want to, help other women with endometriosis to align with their cycles and listen to their womb wisdom. I never would have thought that was where I would be right now.
I love that. I love that
there's something that you said that just rang true. I think our lives, even though very different, have like so many like similar parallel lines to it, of just like that your partner was the one, or your husband now was the friend that drove you there. And I think it's interesting that, you're on this journey of teaching women about their cycle, and you have a partner who is completely supportive and is tracking your cycle just as much as you are. Mm-hmm. And the same for myself is that, I found a partner who he's completely open to hearing this. And every time I get like lit up and I'm so super excited about something that I've learned or something that, came to me and I want to teach and I want to explore more, he's a sounding board. And, when we have a hiccup in our relationship, he's always like, where are you at in your cycle? Like, can we figure this out? Like, this is part of our dialogue. And I think it's so beautiful for our children to witness as well. Because I have 2 girls and I have my youngest is a boy. And I don't think that it's a coincidence that that's how it was laid out for me. For somebody who was like so disconnected from her body, understood nothing about my cycle. Like I literally understood zero, besides that I bled and I hated it. And I don't even think at the time I fully understood ovulation. I just did the kits because I was like, how do you figure this stuff out? Mm-hmm. And so I was so disconnected. And then I get into contact with my body, and I have 2 girls right off the get-go. And, they see how I interact. They see my partner, like my husband and I interact, and they understand that this can be open dialogue without shame, mm-hmm. that this can be something that is safe to talk about, and that the world is shifting this way. And then I have a little boy who witnesses it as well. And I always say he's going to be like the best husband ever, because he's going to understand women's cycles. He's going to understand rhythms and how to support that. Like, I think it's beautiful that, we're creating this environment where we have partners that are open to receiving it, and that our children get to witness this. Mm-hmm. And it is going to be the change.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I agree with you. I mean, it certainly can't hurt. I mean, my daughter both my children from the age of 1 have been exposed to my blood. I mean, they see when I'm bleeding. I talk about it openly. My husband talks about it openly. I never had an experience like that ever.
Yeah.
And just from a root level growing up without having any interjection of shame, shame is inflammatory. Shame creates inflammation markers in your body. And so it's a feedback loop. It's a negative feedback loop of my body's wrong. That creates more pain. You can't talk about it. It's just this interesting cultural feedback loop that, I'm excited to have broken that lineage in my family. Mm-hmm. And you too, it sounds like.
So I'm curious because, a lot of people that are listening to this, they may have endometriosis themselves or friends who have endometriosis. What would be some easy tips or some takeaways for them to give them hope or to ground into, let's explore deeper? Because endometriosis isn't necessarily the life sentence that we may have been told that it is or felt that it is, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. For me, so I had the doctor I told you about who wanted to put me on medication and take the hysterectomy. And I said, no, I want to do a few other things. The first thing that I started to do was to rest when my body was really screaming at me to rest. And sometimes that just means going to bed half an hour earlier instead of watching Netflix, to, take a hot bath, or like carve out some time for yourself. If that means say no to any lunch dates and take a book and read by yourself, or if that means you can take out half a day, whatever that looks like for you and feels right to you and you're able to do, start carving out some time to rest when your body is screaming at you. So the things that I started to do was rest. And then I started to understand the 4 different seasons, just like our phases of my cycle, and start to live in more alignment with those. So that just by letting your body know, like, I hear you, I see you, I'm adjusting a few things, that can reduce stress by up to 75%, which reduces inflammation, which will reduce pain. So that's a huge place to start, actually, although it seems very mundane. It's really big. And And then one thing that I started to do was to then incorporate some different foods in those different phases that would help me metabolize estrogen, that would help me boost progesterone, that would help me create testosterone. And, I do want to say that before I had surgery and I went back, a year of living like this, I went back to my original doctor, the huge, they call them blood cysts on my ovaries had shrunk by 50%. And the doctor said, never in my 35 years have I ever seen this. And I said, well, isn't your next question going to be, how are you doing it? And he said, no, I'm not interested in how you're doing it. It's probably a fluke. I was like, I assure you, I'm working very hard. He never asked me what I was doing. So it was at that point that I decided to do surgery. But I feel very confident that had I continued down that path, like I was still, my body was showing me signs that things were getting a lot better for me. But yeah, I think that's a great place to start is understand the 4 seasons, start to adjust your schedule as much as you can, incorporate the foods that will help you metabolize and create the hormones that you need. The other thing that was big for me, I'd be interested to see if it was for you too, was castor oil packs.
Yes. I would say castor oil packs and going out and intentionally finding body workers that specialized in womb massage, right? Mm-hmm. Whether that would be visceral manipulation or abdominal massage, not just going to massage therapists that's like, oh yeah, I can do an abdominal massage on you. It's like, no, I want someone who specializes in getting into the deep tissue and not deep tissue as in I'm putting pressure, but going in intentionally and understanding the womb space and how to work it. But castor oil was huge, as is so much in like a lot of what I do with yoga, with my yoga practices is also around how can we increase that circulation through breath and movement, right? Like how can we isolate that experience in the pelvis and manually feel our power of moving the body there to bring awareness and to bring blood flow, right? And so, yeah, there's so many ways, but castor oil packs definitely are a great way for heat and adhesions.
Yes. Yeah, acupuncture was big for me as well. I will say my abdominal massage is actually what woke my endometriosis up.
Really?
Yes. So I had really intensely painful periods, getting worse and worse and worse. I'd gone to see the doctor. He said, it's normal. It's your body punishing you. I'd asked some friends, and friends said, got to try my abdominal massage. So I had this amazing abdominal massage, went home, took a nap, like she suggested, woke up, went to go to the bathroom, and I was in excruciating pain. I was not bleeding. I was in excruciating pain. I thought that something had ruptured. I thought that I was dying. My stomach bloated up within 30 seconds to the size of 6 months pregnant. I was shaking. My fever spiked. I crawled to the phone, called a friend who came over, and had no idea what was going on for me. What I know now is that with the amount of endometriosis that I had, imagine that there's like blisters all over the body outside of your uterus. And those blisters microscopically bleed. They think they're like endometrial tissue as well. And so when you bleed, when your body signals you that, to shed the uterine lining, all these microscopic kind of blisters, for lack of a better word, are like, oh, we think we're uterine tissue. We should bleed too. That microscopic blood has nowhere to go. We'll do that for 20 years. And basically what had happened was that blood glued my internal organs together. So when that Mayan abdominal massage went really deep and started to move things around in my abdomen, it created an intense amount of pain as things started to become unstuck, which is so interesting because then I started to ask, okay, if endometriosis has made me stuck, how else might I be stuck? Psychologically, emotionally, spiritually. So I really, not only did I deep dive into the nutrition and the modalities of healing, but I also did a deep dive into where I was spiritually stuck, where I was psychologically and emotionally stuck, and the things that needed to move and shift. And so I also think this is why in Christiane Northrup's book, Women's Body, Women's Wisdom, she says that Jungian analysts say that endometriosis is a blood sacrifice to the goddess. It's really interesting. And I was like, what does that even mean? What I think it means to me is that it is your own inner feminine asking for your awareness.
Yes.
It's such an opportunity to say, like, the goddess within, like, I'm shifting my perspective to be in more alignment with you, with things like intuition and cycles and nature and inner knowing and wisdom. And so, yeah, that's my story. Also with Mayan abdominal massage. So if you do have or suspect you have really intense endometriosis, maybe be gentle on that one until you know for sure what you're dealing with.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because my yoga therapy training, part of me in my deep dive after my certification to even deepen more was to find a teacher who had her own yoga therapy program as well. I didn't do my full program with her, but I have done a women's module with her, and it's focused on traditional Chinese medicine. And it's looking at all these different conditions as well. And in there, like, we go through a lot of intake questions to figure out, like, where is there a deficiency or excess? And it is guiding you using traditional Chinese medicine. And in there, she does talk about how, like, for some, compression feels really good, but also for others, creating space, not the compression, the space feels better, right? And so this is where, like, I think this is with everything. And I think this is where we get stuck sometimes in Western medicine, is that it's not a one fits all. It's about, okay, can I tune into my body, listen to what I'm feeling, look at my symptoms and how it makes me unique? And then can I play around with, does hot feel better? Does cold feel better? Do I feel pain before I bleed? Do I feel pain during bleed? Do I feel relief before my bleed or relief after my bleed, right? Like, these are all the ways that we can fine tune it to know if something is right for you, right? So, like, for you, that compression was too much. But I also think, I hope this is okay with saying, but I also think that, with you having that experience, as much as it was awful for you post, is that it did ignite something in you of going, where else am I stuck? Would you have asked yourself that question? And it sucks that you had to go through with what you went through. Like, I'm not promoting people to go down the hard road to figure out these questions, but sometimes this is like how we can find these silver linings in the moment of, rather than going, this is the worst, don't ever do it in your life, or don't ever seek this kind of therapy, or don't ever remove your uterus, or don't ever, like, all these things that make us feel like we're more shitting on ourselves. Is that sometimes when these big things happen in life, it's like, is there something that I can take away from this to actually allow me to deepen into it? And so I love, love, love that you shared about how it was like, where else am I stuck? Because I think that's what I did with myself during my experience with ectopic pregnancies, is that it was like, where am I being so rigid in my life that I just can't be flexible? And so, unlike you, where you're like, I like thought about quitting my job and I lined things up, I just quit.
Good for you.
Like, this is sucking my creativity. This is not feeding any joy in me. I don't know where I'm going to go. I have no idea what I'm going to do, but I have to jump because I'm rigid right now. I'm stuck here because I keep saying I'm staying here for maternity leave. And that's part of my rigidness. So here's my 2 weeks notice. And I left. And I remember my husband going, what are we going to do for money? And I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah. Amazing.
I'm just going to jump.
Absolutely. Especially if it's making you sick and contributing to disalignment. Is that even a word? Disalignment?
I don't know, but we'll make it one today.
Misalignment? It's misalignment, I think.
Misalignment, yeah.
Anyway, yes, I agree. And also, to your point, like, I wouldn't change that Mayan abdominal massage. I mean, it woke me up to the next level of who I was meant to step into becoming. And I wouldn't change a thing about that journey. Yeah, I do believe that healing is body, mind, and soul. And so it's brave work to look at all three, but I think it's imperative.
And it's really interesting that you say that body, mind, and soul, because I think for myself in the beginning, when I started to go, I want to learn more about me, it was very much on a physical plane. Yeah. And then I started, like, really deepening into my personal yoga practice. And I was like, well, this is working my mind. And then I was like, I'm going to go into yoga therapy. I'm going to go back to school and become a yoga therapist so I can really research. But it was still from this mindset of like, I need to scientifically understand the anatomy and understand diagnoses. And how can I really go into this with like, and it wasn't until I got into the next layer of my healing journey when I came across by fluke a teacher who then like really lit the candle of the spiritual part of me. And I think for myself, there was this big resistance for a long time of understanding that spirituality and religion are not the same thing, that they're very different. And this spiritual journey of going into my body, into my soul's essence, was like this next level of me deepening into my understanding of the divine feminine, my understanding of womb wisdom and healing the body. And I think that was like the next little piece to unlock what was going on for me in my healing journey.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Beautiful. I love the parallels of our story.
I just want to say one more thing here before we wrap up this call today, because you mentioned Women's Bodies, Women's Wisdom, which I love as a book. I love that manual. But in there, I actually, for this call, I prepped for with a quote that came out of that book.
Oh, did you?
And when you, and when you said it, I was like, I have a quote too. And so this is what Christian Northrup says about endometriosis in her section in that book. It says that endometriosis is linked to it this way: is when a woman feels that her innermost emotional needs are in direct conflict with what the world is demanding of her. Endometriosis is one of the ways her body tries to draw her attention to the problem. And I think that just kind of really wraps up what we've been talking about here. Seeing ourselves not in relationship to everything the outside world is putting pressure on us. It's about us going inwards and setting our own new trajectory of how do we want to show up in our life? How can we create more balance? How can we actually show up in a life where we feel alive each day, inspired, lit up, living the best life? Because every day counts. Every day is important for us to be in our essence.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And one thing Elisa Vitti says, and she wrote several books. Do you know, are you familiar with her at all? Yeah, she's amazing. One thing that she said to me is that, and it's so true, it takes so much energy to be out of balance. It takes so much energy to go against your natural cycles. And when you adjust those and you realize your body is an ally, you can then put your attention on what you're here on this planet to do. And she says, and that, dear sister, is what I'm interested in. And it's so true. It's so true. Like, that's where I want more women's attention to be on. Why are you here? What is your purpose? Why are you here at this time? What is your soul craving to say and do? And if we can get in line with our own nature, like our body and our soul, they want to align to help us to achieve what our purpose is.
This has been such an amazing conversation, full of so many wisdom drops. And I really hope that women walk away with this feeling like lit up about like, what is my next best step? What is it that I need right now? And if you're on this endometriosis path, I really do hope that this conversation has helped give you hope, help get you curious about how can I explore my health and my wellness in maybe a different lens? How can I come into relationship deeper with myself? And I'd really encourage all listeners out there, if you love this conversation, make sure you go and check out Jamie's podcast, because she has a podcast as well. Her podcast is called The Red Revolution. Is that right? Or no, Red Volution. Sorry. Red Volution. Sorry.
That's okay.
Red Volution. And then check her out on Instagram as well. Her handle is @periodlove, or you can check out her website at periodlove.com to get more of this wisdom from her, because this was so helpful. This was amazing. I love it. I could be on here forever with you talking about menstrual cycles.
I feel the same.
You know, it's so funny because my husband always jokes that he can't take me to Christmas parties because at some point
I'm the same.
the conversation goes to everybody's period and I take over the table.
100%. I'm just going to send you like holiday uterus earrings. So They'll just approach you knowing what the subject will be.
Exactly. He's always like, okay, I'm preparing myself for tonight's conversation, where it's going to go. So, well, thank you so much, Jamie. This has been a fabulous conversation. I am so thankful that you came on here and to share your wisdom with, everybody that's listening to the Aligned Womb, Aligned You podcast. For way too long, as women, we have been guided to hate our menstrual cycle and to curse our hormones. We have lost the art of seeing the inner power of being cyclical. So, if this podcast is inspiring you and waking up a new curiosity of how your cycle can be your superpower, I invite you to check out the She Sisterhood. This is a monthly membership that will align you to your unique rhythm through aligned womb yoga practices, cycle coaching on how to weave your cycle wisdom into everyday life, and to be part of a community of women that are awakening to their inner power. Remember, womb wisdom equals connection to self, which ultimately equals inspired living. And if you love this episode, don't forget to rate and review. I love seeing how this information is transforming your life.